No dog sold or raised for illegal purposes. This is a historical and entertainment-based channel. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oh, yeah. Episode 21, yeah. Yeah. Let go. Why has Crenshaw's Reno been overlooked? A look at Vernon Jackson and the Hawkeye strand. Are the Recoil Buck dogs super doo-doo? Let us analyze the evidence on this episode of Bulldog Court. Bulldog community, please rise. This is your host, Get a Hold James. Because we got to get a hold of the game.
Court is now in session.
Oh, man. Sleep time for the Sandman. But you better get your ass up, because this is another episode of Bulldog Court. This is your host, Get a Hold James. Because we got to get a hold of the game. Oh, man, a lot of chatter, quack going on in these Bulldog Talk streets. You know what I'm saying? People hitting these episodes like Crenshaw in the 80s. You understand what I'm saying? And, shout out to all the supporters of the Sporting Dog Archive, Dog of Note, Fun Facts, Hidden Gems, and of course, the story of different grand champions and champions throughout history. And main course with your Bulldog Court. We like to thank everybody who checked out last week. Shout out to all, my smoking dog men, my smoker dog men, the ones that get high as giraffe balls. You know what I'm saying? And go into the chat room and listen to the dog talk. Shout out to all the smokers, the bong hitters, the blunt rollers, the joint smokers, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to all of y'all. Continue, safely. But, shout out to everybody who checked me out. Shout out to everybody who commented, and, shared some of their experiences, some dialogue back and forth about certain dogs in history. I really enjoyed that. A lot of talk about the Little John dogs, the Red Pirate dogs, etc. But I'm not going to hold you up on this Saturday. I digress. We're going to get into these cases. And for my first case, why has Crenshaw's Reno been overlooked? Let us dig into this. As my OG would say, I'm cutting everything with a barred axe. I'm only going by the pairs online statistics. Because I can tell you the only time I ever seen Crenshaw's Reno was in Wood Superman 2. That would come down off of Bristol's Herschel and, all the Superman 2 stuff. And then, they would breed Reno to a dog called Reese's Citation Sue. That would be the part of Reno that I knew. But when you look at the page, you see where he has at least 5 champions, and I don't think he's talked about enough. We talking about Crenshaw's Reno, not Ed Crenshaw, but James Crenshaw's Reno, a little mate brother to the champion Jeep, champion Charlie, champion Missy, and the Holly dog. So we see where he has Garrett's champion Big Bear, 4-time winner, 1-time loser. Garrett's champion Dirty Mary, 3-time winner. Rebel Kennels had a little bit of everything from everybody that was going on at that time. Rebel Kennels had a champion off of Reno called Champion Reb. Reese's Walking Tall, 2-time winner. And 6 Feet Deep's Champion Punisher, 3-time winner, 1-time loser. Also Champion Fontenot's Hondo. So I called out a 2-time winner also, but the champions I called out were the 5. And then we also got Hollingsworth Keeler, who was off of Crenshaw's Reno, bred to a champion, or Bob, which is off of Trill Moody and Honey Bunch, bred to Miss Pool Hall Red, which is off of Grand Champion Boomerang, of course, bred to Hides or Carver's Meanie, Heavy Iron Head. And so You know, I proposed the question to the Bulldog community because I actually don't have the answer. You know, just because I'm proposing the question does not mean I readily have the answer. Maybe you can help me with this. Shout out to Brian Gilbert, who asked me to do a piece on Crenshaw's Reno to highlight this dog. But like I said, I don't think he was ever matched. He was just a stud dog, you know, just used for breeding. He ended up throwing just like many of his little mates. Jeep, Charlie, ended up throwing. Jeep through. Missy, you know, bred into her half brother, grand champion Snake, through some dogs, you know, Snake being off of Otis and Honey Bunch. So if this is all true, this is just another testament to the producing power of the Bo Honey Bunch dogs. Yet another producing, you know, at least a POR. I believe that's all it takes is 4 champions. He had 5. So if that's true, then he's a POR at least. And yet another example of a extremely potent producer from the Bo Honey Bunch breeding. So it's just something I wanted to touch on, you know, and I wonder why they left his name. You know, nobody talks about his champions that he threw. I haven't heard anybody discuss the champion that he threw, but you know, hey, not everybody talks about champion Missy, but I understand why, because they say she ran off the last one and was never seen again. I think for the 4th one, you know, she turned reindeer. She took a run for the border. She never looked back. But, maybe that's the reason why they don't mention Missy, but Missy, shows up in some pretty significant dogs, you know, especially the breeding to, champion Chinaman, which, I believe that made the Crumbs Nubby dog. I believe, you find that, her in Arkla Combine's champion or Grady's champion Redman. I think that's in there. So you will find these dogs in pedigrees, but for whatever reason, nobody talks about them. But what are your thoughts? What are your opinions? Please leave your comments in the comment section and let me know what you think. So for the case of why is Crenshaw's Reno overlooked? This case is now dismissed. We'll get back to the show after these important messages.
Check out one of the best dog talk shows out here, Bulldoggin' with Bo, on Dogman TV, Thursdays and Sundays, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Shout out to his co-host, Nonstop.
Oh, yeah. And for my second case, Vernon Jackson and the Hawkeye strand. Let us get into this. When we think about Vernon Jackson, oftentimes we think about Jackson's Hank, the sire of champion Jocko. And those yellow fans, you know, who live and breathe the yellow JR and strands of dogs, you know, they kind of know these pedigrees by heart. No need for an introduction. And if you've been in the game long enough, of course, you know about, you know, the makeup of these animals. And so we know that Jackson Hanks is primarily basically a Mayfield type inward dog. But what you may not know is that he, in latter years would use a dog called Hawkeye. Hawkeye is pretty much a very, very heavy Eli Mayfield's inward dog. More so Eli, you know, heavy Eli Jr. You know, you have the Middleton's black for heavy Middleton's, face, Grand Champion Middleton's face, which is off of Middleton's Black Betty. Black Betty is also the dam of Gardner's Grand Champion Spike. which is a double bred Holtz Jeremiah female, and the quarter being some more Bullison. So very, very heavy Eli through Bullison. And, you know, they took that stuff and made a blend of, but the only thing about this blood is Hawkeye, and this, you know, some people may laugh at this, some people may, you know, look like, what? Why would you even mention these kind of dogs? And you have to give the respect for the grand champions and the champions, and you have to give the respect for the ones that had the courage to step across that wall, even though it was to no avail. So the thing about this with Hawkeye is both his sire and Dam both quit the first time they came out. You know, well, both of them one-time losers. Both quit. But these dogs were used for the people who did use them for a purpose. And you might say, get a hold, James, what do you mean by that? And I'm saying that these dogs were primarily used for their high ability. Their mouth was, you know, I've seen some of these dogs back in the day, and the ones that really had the mouth, they really had, I'm talking about break your legs like toothpicks. I mean, extremely devastating. Like, wham bam, and you are in heaven's doors. You know what I'm saying? It won't take you long. And so people was using these animals for that. And I can recall a friend of mine who had some Jackson Hawkeye dogs. He would talk to Mr. Jackson, and Mr. Jackson would always say that he believed, in his estimation, that there were many times that people came and bought his dogs, bred his dogs into their dogs, but didn't give him any credit in the pedigree, you know, whether it be because, you know, the dogs go back to dogs that were curs or what. But he knew that they had been using this stuff because he knew who all came and bought dogs from him, one of which being California Jack. And he believed that California Jack bred his Jackson Hawkeye blood into the Poncho blood. And this is where you find the Southside Misters. This is where you get, you know, the Vice Grips Lulu, which is, I believe, the dam of Grid's champion, Mr. Sirius. The Poncho Juniors of the world, who, you know, got off the chain and went into champion Stormbringer and broke his complete muzzle. Like, broke it. Like, snap, crackle, and it did pop. And so he said that, when have you ever seen Bolio Tombstone dogs ever that devastating? You know, you got the Tombstone where the Tombstone will show up and you'll have some that have some very, you know, a little bit above average mouth. But for the most part, pretty much average mouth, you know, for the Bolio Tombstone strands, but very, you know, intense. They hit you everywhere. You know, they're very smart. Hit you in all the soft spots. Historically speaking, this is all the past. So when we look at these animals, and these animals that he's, you know, specifically pointed out, and I can't remember all of the conversations that me and my partner had at that time. Me and the homie, we was talking about it, but this was just what he relayed to me from Mr. Jackson, that he felt like people, you know, built their yard up, you know, and advanced their bloodline off of him, but they never gave him credit. They hid that. And so, you know, but there were champions who came, just like Long's champion Ghost, and you probably heard Twin on Going Hard Kennels Reloaded talk about Jamie Long, the late Jamie Long. You know, that wasn't really his name, but he had one of the dogs that he had was a dog called Champion Ghost, and Ghost was a Jackson dog. I think it might have been Jackson and Burn Stumpy mixed together. Very devastating animal, you know. And of course he he had, King Tut from Fat Bill. Fat Bill was just talking about Jamie, and that he stole King Tut from him when he was in prison. And when he came out of prison, he wouldn't let him get his dog back. But, and that the twins, sold Jamie a bunch of different Mayday, buck type dogs, Going Hard's Baby, Registered Merit, and many others, that were, sold to him. So he had, a bunch of different dogs, had a lot of different Grand Champion Virgil dogs, stuff like that, Long's Voodoo, all this stuff. But anyway, I digress. And these dogs were kept by Mr. Jackson for a particular reason. And even so, if you look further down in the pedigree out of Hawkeye, the stuff out of Hawkeye, he would breed into a dog called Jackson's Mamba. And Mamba is pretty much a Boyle's Cherokee Chief bred female that that Vernon Jackson implemented into the bloodline. But I don't know how much of a difference that really made, because those dogs were still known for what they were known for. And another thing is, if you was to ever get interested in this line of dogs, if you are not prepared to handle a 60-pound dog or more, I repeat, a 60-pound dog or more, you don't need to even think about dealing with the Jackson Hawkeye strand of dogs, because they run on the big side. They would be perfect adversaries for the old school, Rip Boy Jocko, Yellow, some of the bigger Mayday dogs. They would be, and I can recall some of the Jackson's dogs running into dogs like, shout out to Fluff, running into Bamboo, back in the days, to no avail. Bamboo was what he was. Anybody that know Catching Rex, Bamboo, he was what he was. You have dogs, but the thing about this that people may not realize is that Hawkeye threw Grand Champions and Champions. Like Grand Champion Junior. He threw, he threw Bailey's Champion Shirley. He threw Jackson's, Champion Thug. You threw some dogs. Long's Mugger Man, owned by Jamie Long, the late Jamie Long, is the one who threw the Ghost dog, the Long's Ghost. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Ghost won a few himself. He produced as well. There were some people who, like Final Chapter and other people who had some stuff off of that, they bred the Jackson blood into the Champion Brick blood, the Blackjack blood, through the dog Champion Brick. So, just something that I'm looking into. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions. Some people may, breed this blood. On one side, you may say, I would never breed that blood because, all the one-time losers that's in the pedigree. And then you may look on the other side and say, well, if it's going to, give me the traits that I want to see, then maybe I'll give it a try. But what are your thoughts? Some people may say, if it doesn't have certain characteristics, that you want to see out of your animal, then why would I breed it into my animal? Or if I don't want to breed anything that's lacking anything to breed into my blood. But we know that over time that things begin to lack. Maybe your conformation is not what it once was. Maybe you're losing your body build, maybe your dogs are getting very small. They in the low 30s, high 20s. You might want to add some new blood in to bring the size back, but this is just something that I'm bringing forth. I think that maybe not a lot of people even know about Vernon Jackson other than Hank, and the type of dogs that he, would end up with in the latter years. People just think he fell off the face of the earth or something after Jocko, but it's just simply not true. And so, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about this? Can you handle a dog that's 60 pounds or a line of dogs that consistently throw 50 and 60 and sometimes 70-pound animals, or maybe not. That's not your cup of tea. But let me know in the comment section. And for the case of Vernon Jackson and the Hawkeye strand, this case is now dismissed. Oh yeah. And for my third and final case, are the Recoil Buck dogs super doo-doo? Let us get into the shits. Let us get into this. When we look at the Recoil Buck dogs, these are dogs that came from the United States, Gaston dogs, with a special blend of Hellbends, Tonka Bear, bloodline mix. Very well bred dog from solid camps. But we see where these animals went over to South Africa. This dog went in to make a name for himself, and rightfully so, to represent his family of animals, and did a tremendous job over whatever competition is over there for him to run into. I cannot vouch for or go against any of the competitors that Recoil Buck went against. I don't know. But we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say it's all legit. Everything it is what he said it was. And so, with the dogs, for whatever reason that's outside of the United States and even in Mexico and certain places, I see where those dogs will stimulate some type of fanfare, even though people have really never seen those dogs, or things are by word of mouth. Okay. So of course you will want to, everything is a gamble in life, and you want to take a chance and buy a few and experiment and bring them back to the States and from over in South Africa and give them a chance, to prove themselves yet once again. I like that. Instead of saying again, I said again, like Malcolm X in the movie. But anyway, don't you raise your voice in my house again. Okay, anyway. So when you look at the numbers and you go and you begin to look at different things as far as the numbers are concerned, the numbers are very telling. There have been many years have passed, many moons have went by, and I hate to bring out Jiminy, but Jiminy might be sticking his head out looking like, do you need me, boss? Oh, you haven't called me in a while. Do you need me to step out on the scene? Because somebody have been producing nothing but crickets. Straight crickets, Jimmy, and which lead me to the question, are the Recoil Bucks just super doo-doo? They rate you and the crew without any synthesizers, just a bunch of drums and no real rhythm. They just and I've heard some bad reports, and I've heard some troubling reports, and here and there I will hear some good ones, but for the most part, nothing but that doo-doo, nothing but some straight, defecation. Some extraction from the rear proximity, some excretion from the gluteus maximus. You understand what I'm saying? Straight doo-doo, And so, how do you feel about this? It's just not the right combinations being made. The wrong people got their hands on it. It could be a variable of reasons why that blood is not working out. Now, we do know on the positive side that the Gaston blood is a formidable bloodline that has produced and reproduced itself on a consistent basis. And no matter the competition in the past, it's able to do quite well for itself. So what seems to be the problem with Recoil Buck, or was it that Recoil Buck never was really what they said he was, so therefore he can't produce what he is not. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping it's just a matter of the wrong people got their hands on the stuff. They don't know what they're doing. Or it's a simpler case of some of these animals are not for out in front. These are dogs that are in elsewhere in other parts of the country being very successful, and that's fine too.
He needs some milk.
That's fine too. So this is why I'm bringing it up, because it has to be noted so that it's not like anybody's trying to bash anything, because what you don't know is simply as that. You just don't know. So how do you feel about the Recoil Buck dogs, and what have you heard in the Bulldog community about the Recoil Buck dogs, and how do you feel about their pedigree, their reputation, their characteristics? You know, please leave a comment in the chat and let me know what you think about these animals. And I'm going to leave it right there, but I'm really just hoping and praying that these Recoil Buck dogs are not that type of, and even worse, they could probably be, you know, talking about something wrong back there. Something real wrong. But in the case of the Recoil Buck Super Doodle, this case is now dismissed. Yeah. And now it's time for my closing monologue. And like I say every time, make your next move your best move. But move strategic, like a chess move. You know, all my folks in the Southeast, you know, all my Floridian dog men and women, hurricane coming, hurricane coming, hurricane coming. You know, wind blowing. Woo, woo. Yet another hurricane is coming through Florida, in the southeastern parts of Georgia, South Carolina. You know, get yourself, you know, ready and prepared, and do the things that you have to do to be safe and survive, and have your dogs in a safe predicament. This is your host, Get a Hope James, because we got to get a hold of the game. I'm out.